I would like to introduce you to the next speaker. Actually, we've been talking a lot about entrepreneurship, right? About startups. But there is another concept called intrapreneurship.
That's right. What's that?
Exactly. That's a very interesting thing, because apparently you can develop something, you can create something, not only on your own, but also while working for a big corporate.
Like a company, HP.
Right. It's not a whatever company. It's actually very big and famous. Is there anyone that doesn't know HP?
Anyone that doesn't know HP? Oh, that's pretty cool. One of the first companies that everyone knows in the room, other than Facebook, which makes sense. So.
All right. So basically, like a long story short, Shri, who is coming on stage in a minute, he developed actually 3 projects within the company. And one of them is the latest one that he's working, and it's about wearables. What watch are you wearing today?
I'm wearing the invisible watch, and you're going to get to know about that as well. But the whole idea, Shri, please come on stage and tell us everything about the invisible watch and the other cool stuff you're working on.
Welcome.
That's
all right.
All right.
High five.
Go and do your stuff.
Good afternoon. Wow. You know, when I looked at the couches at the back after lunch, I thought I could go take a nap out there. With that said, I want to introduce myself. As she said, my name is Shri, rhymes with tree, if that's easier for you to remember. And I'm an entrepreneur for one of the very old startups, 75 years ago. And I'm going to talk to you about smart watches. You know, around 3.5 weeks ago, when that man contacted me, he and I had a conversation, and he said, Shri, why don't you talk about the impact of the Apple Watch on the Swiss industry? And you know what? I said yes. And then I said, oh shit. You know, what do I know about Switzerland? I'm a bald, middle-aged Indian. And after all, I've just done one watch, the watch that you're looking at right now. And how do I convince an audience about the impact on the Swiss industry? With that said, I said, that is the rock bottom I can hit. And let me start from there. I'm going to have a couple of pieces of paper with me. I'm massively jet lagged. I have a few key messages, and I don't want to forget giving that to them. So once in a while, I will take the eyes of the audience and look at my sheet of paper. With that said, you know, I want to tell you and ask you a few questions. How many of you know the company Luxottica? All right? Just few. How many of you know Ray-Ban? Wow. All right, this is going to be a lot of exercise, raising your hands, okay? Great. How many of you know Chanel? Even the guys? Oh my God. So, okay, you know that most of those sunglasses, Dolce & Gabbana, Ray-Ban, and all that is done by a company called Luxottica. That's because what you wear is fashion. What you carry is electronics. Do not mix the two. Fashion and what you wear is an expression of yourself. And that has been happening since the dawn of human era 26,000 years ago. And you just cannot change that. And the fashion industry is really, really, really big. There's a number out there, but then let me tell you, I can't count that big. It's actually awfully big. And it's growing 5% year over year. So, I'm going to ask you a few questions here. When you wear a piece of clothing, when you go buy a piece of clothing, what is the most important thing that appeals to you? I know it's very difficult to have a Q&A session about this, but I'll give you the answer. It's emotions. So the killer application for any wearable is emotions. It does not matter whether that is a smart wearable or just a passive wearable. If that was not true, all of us would be walking around with fig leaves today, right? And that's not happening. So we have to remember that. If the industry, the tech industry, dares to encroach the world of fashion, they better make it drop dead gorgeous, or let them make it invisible. Let me ask you this question, right? So, this conference is about Silicon Valley to the Baltics. 2 weeks ago, I was at Wearable World in San Francisco, and I asked a list of questions to the audience there. So please indulge me and try to answer those questions. So, first test. How many of you have smartphones? It's tough to ask the question the other way. How many of you carry dumb phones? You know, you'll be like a wee bit offended. How many of you wear watches that are not digital? Wow, quite a few. All right. How many of you have gone out on a date in the last 1 month? Really? You guys are... When I asked that question in the Silicon Valley, one guy walked up to me and said, "What's a date?" So I don't know who's better. But let me tell you this, right? What you wear exudes your attitude. Big question is, do you want to be the guy who screams when you're on a date, "I know JavaScript"? Or do you want to be a person who exudes an attitude, say, "Hey, I have made it"? So, very simple. When the Apple design chief used a very bold word for trouble about the Swiss watch industry, and when the Apple Watch was announced, very early on, looking at the first reaction, Malik openly said, "Switzerland, exhale, you're okay." So it's fairly straightforward. So, you know, when Andreas asked me this question to come in and talk about the impact, you know, I thought it was intuitively obvious. After the first 3 slides, I thought I would just walk away, because anything that is 14 to 15 millimeter thick, you know, thank God I'm in this part of the world where people understand metric system. Otherwise, I'll have to convert that into inches. You know, something that is thick, something that is a glass slab, it is your choice. You know, it depends on what you want to exude. If you want to carry a piece of glass on your body, so be it. With that said, what I want to do and emphasize again and again, if there is something, any one of you, you know, trying to design a wearable, just remember this. Fashion is what you wear. Of course, there are functions, but the first function of any wearable should be to enhance the form. I'll give you an example. Let's say you had a watch, and this is a question for you guys. Let's say you had a watch wherein you could touch your watch to a piece of clothing. Let's say my colorful sock. And the display of my watch acquired the colors and attributes of what I'm wearing. How many of you would wear that? Right? Because every morning you can accessorize. That's phenomenal. So you want to make sure that any function that you add, of course, health benefits, counting your steps. You guys all look pretty hale and healthy here. But in case you want to do that, all that is fine. But you want to make sure that functionality enhances the form. With that said, what I want to do is fairly straightforward. I also want to talk to you at length about positioning. Please watch this slide. On the x-axis, totally on the right-hand side, you know, hopefully this works. Let's see. All right. On the left-hand side is mechanical. On the left-hand side it's a computer. On the right-hand side is mechanical. Right? And if you actually look at this, mechanical watches have been there since early 1900s. Quartz came in 1970. And then you had the digital watch revolution. And then you had computer on your wrist. Similarly, on the y-axis, all the way at the bottom is something that is made out of plastic, silicon, not so expensive. All the way at the top is something that is jewelry. Just look at where things are. You've seen all these companies, Casio, like the $30 watches that you see, plastic, digital, would pay, in the mass market somewhere lower, right? And then you have the Swiss watch industry, which is all the way on, on quadrant 3, all the way on top, which is jewelry. And what I want to say here is fairly straightforward, is when Apple came out with their product, you see the sphere of influence there. And I want to explain why. Even if you take a piece of electronics and dip it in gold, it is not jewelry. I'll tell you why. Jewelry is timeless. It can be given from your parents, and you could take it, you could give it to your kids. Or one kid, right? If you give it to kids, they'll fight, right? But then, the moment you add technology to it, it becomes short-lived. I was in love with my iPhone 5 till I saw the 5S gold. I don't remember where I put my iPhone 5. That's because the moment you add technology, everything becomes short-lived. So, once again, to make a case on the impact of something that has technology imbued into it, you have to play this very, very carefully. If you want something that is drop-dead gorgeous, something that's going to be jewelry, and you want to imbue technology, you better make technology as a consumable so that you can remove and throw, so that that product remains timeless forever. So, with that said, I also want to say that jewelry becomes a milestone marker. If you have a watch, a Swiss watch, for example, you could actually give it to your kids. It could come from your parents, and that from your grandparents as such. When was the last time a dad said, "Oh, my son, take my Windows Vista laptop, and you can give it to your son"? Do you think that's ever going to happen? No. It's awfully simple. So let's be very careful, when we make lofty statements, right? So, with that said, what I want to do is give you, move away from talking about the impact of the Apple Watch on the industry as such, and talk to you about the technology continuum. We will talk about it tomorrow again. Tomorrow I'm on a panel in the afternoon, I guess, and we'll spend some time. But please lend your ears as you look at this, because this is really important. And especially coming out of Michael's presentation on design, just watch this. The year is 2010. There were like 300 million devices that were shipped. Let's say 2008. 300 million devices shipped, mostly laptops at that point in time. The iPhone was not yet there. You had a bunch of Blackberries. How many of you remember Blackberries? Good. Years of alcohol abuse on our brains. People don't remember much. But then, look at what's happening in the cloud. You had content and commerce. The operating system was not connected to the content and commerce side. The year is 2014. You will see that the operating system is connected to content and commerce, but there is another C that is built in there. It's called community. But the total number of devices is 3 billion. You've gone from 300 million to 3 billion. You know what is common between all these devices? These are glass slabs. It's a piece of glass. That's your man-machine interface. Now, the year is 2016. Magically, there is another C. which is context. That's basically crept into the cloud. You have content, commerce, community, and context that's come together. And then I was talking about glass slabs. You are moving away from the era of glass slabs to the world of enchanted objects. And when I say enchanted objects, I want you to listen to me on this. We live in a world, where there is a tsunami of information that's coming at us. More than that we can take. Hold on to that thought. Let me go back to the era of enchanted objects. Wearables, anything that you wear, needs to be an enchanted object. It shouldn't be a glass slab. Because in the world of enchantment, things have to be done for you and not done by you. And let me explain what that is. The next era of enchanted objects is called the era of Internet of Things. And wearables is a small subset of Internet of Things. If you actually look at the wearables today, there are 146 categories the last time I checked. Every part of the human body is taken. Yes, every part. Don't even go there. Yes, it's there. And in addition to it, it is changing industries. The healthcare industry will be radically transformed. Mark Andreessen calls it industry liquification. For those of you who are not familiar with health insurance, you pay a monthly premium. Now, depending on how much you work out and the data that you share, your health premiums can go up and down. And that is called industry liquification. In addition to that, you are connecting your wearable to your connected home. And that's happened today with the Nest API. So you could be driving. The closer you are to your home, your heating and cooling systems will automatically get activated. Your locks work. Your connected car initiative connects to your wearable. All this is happening today. So in the world of Internet of Things, which wearables is a part of, which we call an enchanted objects, things have to magically connect to one another. You should stop hyper-engaging with your wearable. I will talk a little bit about that too. But if there is one thing that you're going to take away is we are at the end of the era of glass slabs. We are moving into the era of enchanted objects. And what I want to say is, there was supposed to be something on the slide, but I guess I missed it. It says, for any product, you need to solve a problem. What problem are we solving with the wearables? There was a survey that was done by Citibank and said, what features do you want for your smartwatch? It was like an enchilada. There was not one feature that people could agree on. For some, it was apps. For some, it was health and fitness. For some, they said display. For some, they said, oh, I want enhanced battery life. But for people who wear watches and who wear fine watches, if you ask them what they like craftsmanship. They like the brand name. They like the material of the strap. And they don't like the price. All right. So the problem that your wearable has to solve is fairly straightforward. This is a huge problem. It's not going to solve the problem of human population, but just bear with me. How many of you get more than 100 emails a day that are not spam? Wow, very important. You will see that you are in this world where there is an information tsunami. There's loads of information that's coming at you. And that's not easy for you. If you look at our capacity to absorb information, it remains a constant. So what do? You have to focus. What should your wearable do? It should focus on technologies that can amplify your ability to absorb information based on your social setting. right? We live in a hyper-notified world. How many of you here have attempted or tried smartwatches? Very few? All right. You know, the syndrome is very simple. If you have a laptop, if you have a phone in your pocket, and let's say you have a wearable, it happens in this sequence usually. The phone in your butt pocket buzzes, right? So that's number one. And then you get a notification on your desktop, and at the same time, your watch buzzes. We live in a hyper-notified world. That's awfully wrong. You know, we all, you know, in that scenario, we are like monkeys on meth. You know, that's our attention span that we have. You want to make sure that when you have this man-machine interface that is so small, on top of it, you want to add touch. And you're just adding too many complexities onto a wearable. You want to make sure that you get notified only on things that are awfully important. If you're on a date, you don't want to keep getting notified all the time. You should just be able to look at the important information when you want, you know, at your pace. So, you know, I don't know how many of you have seen this. If you continue to add more and more things on a smartwatch, think about distracted drivers today with the phones. How many of you here have truly texted or engaged with your smartphone when you're driving? Let's be honest. We all do that. You know, let's say you're wearing a smartwatch and you're driving. You get a notification. It buzzes. What do? You have a temptation to see. And it's a much smaller screen. And the moment you focus onto that small screen, by the time you defocus and look at where you're going, you're going to be in trouble. Trust me, there will be regulations about driving with a smartwatch fairly soon if you keep adding thousands of features to your smartwatch. We have to be very careful. The rules that are applicable to a glass slab cannot be ported directly into a wearable. It just makes no sense. How many of you have spoken with a Google Glass in public on a Friday evening? I want to be cool, man. It'll be tough for you to get a date. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy. The point is, how many of you are going to take your watch and say, okay, Google? Really? Socially acceptable practices are awfully important. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point in time. It may. But at least not at this point in time. You know? So, old UI rules. We have to be very careful about what you do. And what I would like to do is, I have all the numbers, the statistics, the players. And when I was given 30 minutes to talk about this, I thought, I'll just give you some of the key highlights. And I also thought I could listen to your mellifluous voices instead of me being monotonous, especially with so many people on the couch at the back. I thought I would give you an opportunity to ask any questions. But before that, I want to summarize. And it's not in any order. You know, first thing is fashion is what you wear. I look at each one of you here, right? Individually, you're expressing yourself in a much different way. You know, with your accessories, for example. The parade of the ugly wearables is over. I'm sure no one is going to bring out another piece of electronics that's just going to look ugly on your body, unless you're a convict or, hey, it's regulatory or health-related wearable. Yeah, it just makes sense. Wearables are either going to be drop-dead gorgeous or it's going to be invisible. In addition to that, the first killer app is emotions. I'll ask you this question. How many of you have worn a watch even if it doesn't work properly just because it looks good? Just look at it. Guys, please keep your hands up. I want each one of you to look at that. I love you guys already. So, and fashion and brands are going to play a very important role. You guys wear branded clothing. You think they're going to go away? You think the famous brands that made watches, you think they're just going to go away? No, they're here to stay. But think of this situation. Open systems and brands don't go well together. I'll give you an example. Let's say you run Android Wear, open system, correct? Anybody can write an app. Android Wear, let's say I'm making this up on a Burberry watch. Since it's an open system, Louis Vuitton can write an app for a Burberry watch. You think Burberry would want it? No. What does a brand do? They control the emotions. They want to be in control of what they exude. It's an aspirational thing. So that dichotomy has to be solved. It is not there yet at this point in time. And you have to remember, jewelry is timeless. If you're adding technology to jewelry, you better do that awfully carefully so that technology becomes a consumable, because technology can be upgraded, right? And most importantly, I want to say that the UI rules, what's good for the goose, sadly is not good for the gander at this point in time when it comes to the world of wearables. And all I can say is at this point in time, when you look at the traditional jewelry, luxury, high luxury watch industry, it's far from being gone. I think I would like to quote Lord Alfred Tennyson for "Men may come and men may go, and I go on forever." So thank you very much. You guys have been awake. Ask me any questions.
All right. Thank you. What do you think? How did it go?
I don't know. They have to tell me.
How did it go? Was it good or was it bad? Again, I can't hear you. Was it good or was it bad? All right.